Hi everyone. Today we're going to take a look at a community that came together not only because of their shared passion for dancing, but also because of their shared experiences both literally and figuratively in terms of how far they've come in pursuit of the American dream, and how those pursuits were shattered by something else that unfortunately has also become ingrained into American culture, and that's the tragedy of mass shootings. So let's go revisit the Lunar New Year weekend of early 2023 and visit this community in Southern California within the San Gabriel Valley. The San Gabriel Valley sits just east of Los Angeles and holds one of the largest Asian American populations in the United States. This part of LA County has a long history of Asian immigration going back to the mid-19th century. Today, 2/3 of Asian residents here are foreign-born, and despite being right next to such a large metropolitan city, San Gabriel Valley can be better described as a cluster of smaller suburban towns. In Monterey Park, for example, over 60% of the 60,000 people who live there are of Asian descent. And there, on West Garvey Avenue, sits a venue called the Star Ballroom Dance Studio, where locals and international visitors have been gathering for the past 3 decades to share their love for dancing. Ming-Wei Ma, the manager of the studio, held a lifelong passion for teaching others to dance, which was evident to anyone who knew him, as he spent all his time there and was always the last one to leave. His ballroom offered lessons and classes throughout the week, and they hosted competitions and shows featuring performers from around the globe. It's no surprise that over the years, Star Ballroom became a haven for many older Chinese and Vietnamese residents who would come here to meet other locals their age, and particularly other Asian immigrants. And while most of these participants were of Asian descent, the teachers came from other backgrounds and brought with them styles of dance including Latin, American smooth, American rhythm, Argentine tango, and jazz. Some of the students said they didn't just learn how to dance there, but they ended up learning other languages and about other cultures as well. In 2016, Ming-Wei Ma said to the press that his goal was to provide a venue for Monterey Park's Asian community to prolong their life and to improve their health. He said having this venue where people from all over the world can come together and communicate through dance is how he could help. And it was obvious that Ming-Wei did a tremendous job in this effort. For many middle-aged and senior Asian Americans, this was a sanctuary of love, celebration, and peace where they felt a sense of belonging. And that's why students like Mei Mei Nan kept coming back. Mei Mei immigrated from Vietnam in the 1980s and settled in the nearby town of Rosemead. While she didn't have any children, her 9 nieces and nephews said she loved them like they were her own. Their Aunt Mei Mei loved ballroom dancing, especially salsa and waltz, and so she had been taking classes regularly at Star Ballroom for years. Yu Lun Cao, better known as Andy Cao, worked as a contractor and came to the US from Taiwan about 20 years ago. He and his dance partner, a woman named Shally, shared the dance floor together for 15 years and pretty much went to Star Ballroom whenever they had free time. Because of his welcoming nature with newcomers, everyone at the studio referred to Andy as Mr. Nice. Hong Ying-jen, who went by her married surname Nancy Liu, immigrated from Sichuan province over 25 years ago. She had been wanting to go back to China to visit her mother, but was unable to due to the COVID-19 restrictions. According to their daughter, Nancy and her husband Jeff were regular attendees of the Star Ballroom Studio. Charlie Yao, a dual Taiwanese and American citizen, was also a frequent participant at the studio. So much so that manager Ming-Wei Ma recognized him as Charlie and 3 friends were parking the car at Star Ballroom one night. According to Charlie's son, Charlie and his 3 friends were planning to engage in festivities elsewhere, but couldn't find parking anywhere except at the ballroom. Since Ming-Wei knew him, he let the group of 4 park in the lot, and later Charlie and his 3 friends actually ended up inside the studio anyway. See, on that evening of Saturday, January 21st, 2023, Star Ballroom had a party planned to bring in the Lunar New Year. It was to be a celebration of the Year of the Rabbit, a celebration through dancing. Outside around the corner along 5 blocks of Garvey Avenue, the city of Monterey Park had just held its annual Lunar New Year festival, which was barely over. Tens of thousands of people were in attendance, and the streets were still busy with folks who either hadn't left yet, or they were probably still in the area grabbing dinner before going home. That festival wasn't officially wrapping until 9 p.m. and was scheduled to resume for a second day on Sunday. Back at Star Ballroom, their party wasn't scheduled to end until past midnight. But Mei Mei had other plans that night, so she had her stuff packed up and ready to go at 10:20 p.m., and she and her partner were out in the parking lot and they were about to leave. As she was pulling out, she noticed a man walking around in the parking lot and near her car, She didn't know him or recognize him, and neither did her partner, and that man didn't say anything or gesture anything. But out of nowhere, in a split second, he fired several rounds directly into the driver's side window of Mei's car, directly striking her. And then that man turned around and proceeded to go inside the dance studio. Now, Mei's partner, who was sitting in the passenger seat, wasn't hit or injured, and he managed to escape and get out of the vehicle and dial 911.
What happened?
We tried to leave. We start the car and try to leave, and suddenly somebody come next to the window and shoot the window.
Okay, and is your girlfriend awake?
I'm not sure.
Okay, is she awake? Can she talk to you?
May, can you talk to me?
No,
she cannot talk.
Meanwhile, inside the ballroom, the festivities had been well underway, but were suddenly interrupted by the sound of gunshots. At first, most people inside thought it was the sound of firecrackers, but then as people got shot and started falling on the floor, everyone started scurrying and running away from the shooter.
We hear like boom, boom, boom. I thought it's a Chinese firework, you understand?
Your partner was shot.
He doesn't respond me, he like this. He doesn't respond me at all. And at that time, I see my hands of blood. I said, what happened? I thought I was the one we shot. I was yelling like crazy. And one of the lady tell me, you okay? You can yell, that means you're okay.
At first, Shally thought the blood on her was her own, and she was terrified that she had been hit. She soon realized that she hadn't been shot, but instead that blood came from the wounds of her dance partner, Andy Cao. As they were both fleeing from the gunman, Andy tried to block his partner from the trajectory of the shots, and in protecting Shally, he absorbed at least one bullet that would end up being fatal. Nancy's husband, Jeff, was near the ballroom entrance when he saw the gunman enter and open fire. 2 bullets grazed him and caused minor injuries to his shoulder and back. Even though he witnessed Nancy collapse, he never got a chance to approach her or try to escape with her. In the midst of the chaos, they got separated and he would later get taken off by an ambulance. Nancy getting shot and falling was the last moment Jeff saw his wife alive. Xiuwan Yu was a wife and mother of 3 girls, 2 of whom are in California universities studying sports medicine and kinesiology. Her niece described her and her husband as having worked tirelessly to support their daughter's livelihood and education, working odd jobs and taking on labor-intensive occupations to make ends meet. It was Xiuwan's first time visiting the Star Ballroom Dance Studio. She was there for the Lunar New Year party with her friend Leland. Leland Lee had 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren, as well as 2 sisters and a brother. Her daughter knew her as someone who was never knocked down by life's twists and turns. And while her granddaughter fell asleep many a night nestled in between her loving arms, her grandson was still too young and hadn't felt her love and warmth yet. On that night, Leland and Xiuwan were at the party with a 3rd woman. She had gone to use the restroom, and when she came back out, she found both of her friends had suddenly been shot.
911.
Yeah, I want to report the Monterey Park
Yes, what's
Star
going on?
Dance Studio. Somebody already reported?
No, what's going on, sir?
Somebody using a gun shooting people inside the studio. So we just came out.
How long ago?
Huh?
What's the address?
I don't know, the corner of Garvey and Garfield.
122 West Garvey?
Star Dance
Is
Studio.
it 122 West Garvey?
I don't know the address. It's just a corner.
Is it Star Dance Studio?
Yeah, that's the one. That guy is reloading the...
Is anyone hurt?
I don't know.
Hold on.
You better send police here right away. He might start shooting again. I'm outside the building. I don't know if anybody got hurt or not.
How long ago?
Just 2 minutes ago.
Can you see if anyone's hurt?
I don't know. It happened too fast. Everybody free ran away. So I don't know.
Did you see?
It could be the people close to the entrance. He just start shooting. I think it was 5.
So it was a male?
Yeah, male. Just one guy.
Okay. Did he run away on foot or did he go in a vehicle?
I don't know. He's trying to reload the cartridge or the gun, and people kept just ran. He didn't know how long
Do you have a
Again,
description? Is he black, white, Asian, or Hispanic?
No, happened too fast. Can even see him. I thought he was using firecrackers. So still a lot of people outside the building now. So you better send the police before we go back and get my stuff. Okay?
Okay.
The official death toll and the identities of the victims were yet to be verified. But in a matter of just a few minutes, the assailant had shot over 20 people and then seems to have vanished without a trace. Everything happened so fast, and of course everyone was trying to get away from the shooter, so no one got a good look at who this person was or where he went.
But this is yet another mass shooting here in America that we are trying to gather more information about. Very early moments here as we try and get some more information about exactly what happened here in Monterey Park, California.
Matt Rivers, thank you. Again, still a lot we don't know. Very few details on the suspect, what sparked this shooting.
Just 20 minutes later at 10:39 p.m., the suspect made his way to another venue in the nearby town of Alhambra. 3 miles away at Lai Lai Ballroom Studio, he encountered only one person inside, the studio manager, 26-year-old Brandon Tsay. Brandon's grandmother has always loved dancing, so a few years before he was born, his grandmother founded Lai Lai, creating a space for her family members and friends to gather and socialize and learn to dance. It became a family business where he grew up and developed many fond memories. Both of his parents are from Taiwan. After settling in Southern California, his father would work full-time while his mother took care of him and his sister. Sadly, during college, his mother was diagnosed with cancer, prompting Brandon to take a break from school and go overseas with his mother for medical treatment. This break from college and her illness would go on for 3 years until she passed. When Brandon returned, he would continue helping his family out by taking on the task of managing Lai Lai Ballroom. On the night of January 21st, 2023, he was just closing up shop when he heard someone enter the studio.
I heard the sound of the door, front entrance shutting, and then it seemed like he was preparing his weapon to fire, changing some sort of setting on the gun or fixing his gun to prepare to fire. It seemed like he was trying to scout out the room for other people. That's when I sprang into action. I realized in the moment that I needed to do something at this moment. I needed to grab the gun, try to disarm him so he couldn't do any harm to me or others. I was trying to divert the weapon away from me, away from the ballroom. I pointed the gun at him and told him, go away, you gotta leave, go, get out here.
The suspect stopped fighting and struggling with Brandon and decided to leave the premises. Brandon, with the weapon still in his own hands, called the police right away. After authorities showed up, of course they did their best to determine whether this incident was connected to the massacre that had just taken place 3 miles away.
We're aware of an incident that occurred in Alhambra, and we have investigators on scene trying to determine if there's a connection between these two incidents.
Even though the suspect had once again fled the scene, this time several key pieces of evidence were available. First of all, the firearm, or one of the firearms, was now in the possession of police. The weapon Brandon grabbed out of the assailant's hands was a semi-automatic pistol with what experts believe was a homemade suppressor attached at the front. Next, there was also an image of him that authorities were able to publish. These bulletins with the surveillance footage shots from Lai Lai Ballroom were released and circulated to news media immediately. As now, it was clear that the wanted individual was an Asian male, wearing glasses, around 5 feet 10 inches tall, relatively thin physique. And last, the studio's cameras were also able to capture the vehicle that he drove away in, which was a white cargo van. However, it wouldn't be for another 12 hours before police would catch up to that van.
Torrance PD notified LA County Sheriffs that they had a potential suspect vehicle. They've shut down this little intersection at Sepulveda and Hawthorne Boulevard. We're just in the southwest corner from the Del Amo Fashion Center. So very busy intersection, very busy in the morning.
During the standoff, which lasted another 2 hours, authorities actually weren't 100% sure if the occupant of this van was necessarily the same person who committed the massacre at Star Ballroom the night before. It didn't seem like any communication occurred between police and anyone in the van. There was no gunfire exchanged. Eventually, though, the SWAT team moved in on the vehicle. They found one person inside who was apparently already dead. He has shot himself with this pistol found in the van.
The suspect has been identified as Huu Can Tran. He is a 72-year-old male Asian.
Huu Can Tran immigrated to the United States in the late 1980s and was a homeowner in San Gabriel, California for over 2 decades. He was briefly married for about 5 years and also started his own trucking company called Trans Trucking Incorporated in 2002. Now, a few major media outlets have reported interviewing his ex-wife, as well as acquaintances and members of the dance studio community in and around Monterey Park. Reportedly, they said that he met his ex-wife at Star Ballroom. So for a period, he was actually a frequent participant there, as well as at Lai Lai Ballroom in Alhambra. However, these same individuals would tell the news media that he had quite the short temper, that he got easily irritated by almost everyone, that he had a problem with almost all the instructors at the dance studios, and that basically he didn't have very many friends and he just couldn't get along with anyone. In 2004, he would shut down his trucking company for unknown reasons. Later on, he would file for divorce and even sell his house in San Gabriel, eventually moving to a mobile trailer park home 80 miles east in Hemet, California. There, authorities searched and found 400 rounds of ammunition and evidence that he was making his own firearm suppressors.
Property records show Tran bought the mobile home in a senior community in 2013, 8 years after he got divorced.
Investigators recovered a total of 42 shell casings and a large capacity magazine.
In terms of a criminal record, Huu Can Tran was arrested for illegal possession of a firearm way back in 1990. But other than that, he's never been in trouble with the law. And despite his reputation and his personality, he doesn't have any known violent history. Now, there are some theories that he targeted the dance studios because of some kind of jealousy or animosity against his ex-wife or people she might have associated with, or perhaps people that he interacted with in the past or had some kind of issues with before. However, these theories have never been verified by any official sources, so unfortunately, we still don't truly know what his motive was behind this deadly attack. Meanwhile, on that Sunday, the second day of the Lunar New Year festival in Monterey Park was effectively cancelled. Several victims were still hospitalized, and the names of those who died had not been publicly released yet. Privately, the worst fears of several families would soon be realized, as authorities started making the calls to share the devastating news. Valentino Marcos Alvaro, a Filipino-American, was known as the life of any party who was always enthusiastic about exchanging life stories with those around him. Family members remember him as a loving father, a dedicated son and brother, and a grandfather who loved his 3 nieces and nephews like his own children. As a result of the massacre, Valentino was deprived of his last rites, a sacrament and moment of prayers that Catholics receive if they're ill or close to passing away. His family asked that all priests and Catholics to pray for him by name, Valentino Marcos Alvaro, as he was a faithful servant of God and he would want the world to lift his family in prayer more than anything. Diana Tom left behind a mother, a husband, a son, and 3 grandsons. To everyone who knew her, she was a hardworking woman who loved to dance and always went out of her way to give to others. To honor Diana's memory, her family asked that supporters donate to the Monterey Park Lunar New Year Victims Fund, which was launched by the Southern California chapter of the organization Asian Americans Advancing Justice. I'll provide details to this campaign and other related fundraisers at the end of this video. Just hours before the shooting, Wen Tao Yu had celebrated Lunar New Year with his family. An immigrant from Taiwan, he had managed an agricultural company and was retired. But according to one of his sons, Wen Tao had recently enrolled in a new program and was beginning to study to become a pharmacist, pursuing new career ambitions even at the age of 64. Mui Dai-ung was described as a loving wife, mother, sister, grandmother, and friend. A refugee of Vietnam, Mui Dai wasn't able to escape from her homeland with most of her family in the 1970s and 80s. And it wouldn't be until a decade ago that she finally made it to the United States to reunite with these family members, including her own children. Her relatives encouraged everyone to move forward in the coming weeks and months as a community with love and kindness, as anecdotes to the violence we have experienced. And let us make sure that beyond this moment, we continue to dance and create spaces for joy. Mingwei Ma, who spent years creating such a space at the Star Ballroom, would be one of the lives cut short as a result of the violence. When the LA County Coroner's Office confirmed the death toll and published the list of victims, it would include 11 individuals ranging in age from 57 to 76 years old.
We honor Mai Nan, Shu Zhang Yu, Hong Jian, Xiao Yao, Diana Tom, Lillian Lee, Mui Ong, Yu Kao, Valentino Alvaro, Ming Ma.
The next weekend, some cities continued to host Lunar New Year events, including Alhambra, where Brandon Tsay received a special honor for preventing a second shooting at Lai Lai Ballroom.
The start of the new year has been extremely difficult, but we have the rest of the year to spread compassion and build back our community.
For his courage in saving many lives, Brandon was hailed as a hero by the news media and the community at large. Governor Gavin Newsom visited him at his house. He met with Vice President Kamala Harris when she came to visit Monterey Park. And 2 weeks after the tragedy, he was a guest at the State of the Union address, where President Joe Biden urged the nation to change its laws on assault weapons.
Ban assault weapons now! Ban them now!
The weapon that Brandon Tsay removed from the hands of Huu Can Tran was deemed by experts as altered in a way that made it an illegal assault weapon in the state of California. At the state level, around 10 states, including California, New York, and District of Columbia, have their own restrictions on assault weapons. And while they can be generally defined as a type of semi-automatic firearm, where you can shoot high volumes of bullets rapidly, each of these states don't really abide by the exact same definition, and also the type and the level of restrictions enforced varies between these states. Now, the ban that President Biden was referring to was in place as federal law from 1994 to 2004, prohibiting certain sales and manufacturing of assault weapons. That law has since expired, and Democratic members of Congress have been pushing to restore and strengthen such prohibitions. But so far, such efforts have failed to move forward or get passed in the U.S. Senate, because senators from the Republican Party overwhelmingly oppose the ban, based on the argument that it infringes on the Second Amendment right to bear arms as written in the U.S. Constitution. Either way, regardless of which side you would take if you could vote on such a law, regardless of your personal stance on gun control, one thing is still very certain in America, that mass shootings continue to impact families and communities around the country. In fact, just 2 days after the Monterey Park massacre, the Asian American community in California was struck with a second incident when a 67-year-old man gunned down 7 farm workers up in Half Moon Bay due to what authorities described as stemming from workplace-related conflicts. 2 of the victims were of Hispanic descent, while the other 5 were Chinese citizens. And on the morning of Monday, March 27th, in Nashville, Tennessee, a 28-year-old went into a private Christian school, an elementary school where this assailant was once a student, and proceeded to murder 6 people, including 3 9-year-old children.
I want everyone to take the time to grieve, to mourn, to recover. But after, I want us, the people of this nation, to take action.
Back in San Gabriel Valley, the city of Monterey Park launched an initiative called the Community Healing Fund. Working directly with the California Community Foundation, this campaign, which is currently still welcoming contributions, would benefit the city and its surrounding communities by providing aid to community members affected by this tragedy, as well as support for programs, initiatives, and organizations designed to help Monterey Park heal and rebuild. One of the additional resources referred to and recommended by the city is a group called Asian Americans Advancing Social Justice in Southern California, also known as AJ SoCal. Founded in 1983, it's the nation's largest legal and civil rights organization for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, offering political advocacy, free legal services, and even a hotline available in languages including Chinese, Korean, Tagalog, Hindi, Thai, and Vietnamese. AJ SoCal had created a GoFundMe for the Monterey Park Lunar New Year Victims Fund. They received 11,000 donations totaling over $1 million. As of February 17th, AJ SoCal was no longer accepting any further donations to this specific campaign, and instead they've since been redirecting visitors to send any new contributions to the Monterey Park Community Healing Fund. However, on GoFundMe, there are numerous campaigns that remain open and active and are still in need of support. Most of these are the fundraisers for the families of the individual victims to cover expenses such as costs of memorial services. Now, each one of these web pages and campaigns that I've just mentioned, I'll provide the direct web link to them in the video description of this YouTube episode in case you decide to check them out later. In terms of the Star Ballroom, the classes that they used to offer throughout the week have been canceled until further notice. Of course, there's no telling when they'll ever resume, if they're ever going to resume. But seeing as how this tragedy is still quite recent, the peace that the studio and its gatherings used to offer to everyone, that sense of peace might not be felt again for quite some time. So while the community at large continues to try to heal, in the meantime, I want to thank you for letting me share the story with you today. And until I see you on the next episode, I hope you take care. Thank you.